And we're back at something different, WECS. And on the line, finally, we had a loose connection, but it's all repaired now. Hello, Mr. Beyor.
Yes, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I apologize for the mix-up there.
No problem.
Now, let me see. Tell me a little bit about your book. Was it Rest in Peace?
Well, rest in peace. Actually, it's sort of a double entendre. We came up with the title. Actually, it stands for Reciprocity and Paradox.
Aha.
So we decided also that it was a good name because it also stood for the rip or tear, which in the book I address as a tear in our consciousness, which my book addresses. So it made a good title.
That is. And the subtitle.
The subtitle?
Mining the Subconscious Artifact.
Yes, and that also was conceived basically because our subconscious implant, which are words, pretty much promote what becomes artifact later on. In other words, logic turned illogic, turned logic, turned illogic, until finally it becomes repetition.
Mm-hmm.
So it made an interesting subtitle.
Now, is the book in part about failure?
Yes, it is. That's an interesting point. First of all, I address reciprocity as the dictionary definition being reciprocal obligation. And through the agreement process, if all the budding philosophers out there have partaken of Kant in the Critique to Reason, they've sort of encountered the idea of agreement, an agreement process. They're familiar with this. So in agreeing to agree, we are becoming sort of a complacent, irreverent, sort of an out-of-place human species. In other words, we can't really identify with each other because we're agreeing to agree, and thus we're entering into a new kind of gray age, a new kind of failure, which my book addresses.
I thought we weren't understanding each other because nobody cares anymore.
Well, that's not so. Caring is silent and personal always.
Mm-hmm.
And as an old guy once told me, as a matter of fact, in one of my businesses, he was my foreman. He always felt that what we didn't know would always be used against us. And he always said that basically if you reached out, that you not only engaged yourself in self-introspection, but you came in contact with a new kind of caring, a new kind of perspective. And it took me about 2 or 3 years to realize this. But in doing so, and after traveling a good share of the world, I suddenly dawned on me what he meant. And yes, to a point, a lot of people don't care because it seems like the minute you care, it's personal, it becomes aggravating, you have to think about things, and it's troublesome. So a lot of people want to omit anything that's troublesome. So basically everyone is agreeing to agree to placate and just let things go. But there are many people not doing this. There are many people who are reaching and are discovering, are learning, are separating themselves from this sort of a menage a trois of if you don't do this, you're wrong or incorrect or untruthful and so on. So if I've answered your question, I hope I have.
Yeah. Isn't it sometimes being like the easy way out or just looking for instant gratification that leads to this?
In what way? How do you mean that?
People who really don't try to succeed.
Well, I tell you, succeed at what? You see, in the RIP, in my book, I try to describe what it means to succeed. Now, if succeed is a gold star for remembering something, I don't exactly call that succeeding at anything beyond maybe the dog jumping through the hoop idea.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking is not confirmation. Thinking is doubting down and reducing things and ending up with a feeling, a sense of something. And in my book, I try to describe this, and there are many unique concepts involved, needless to say. But we can't realize the important things of life by just remembering to do based on what somebody says. I mean, if life is to be lived, are we doing it through memory only? See, this is the question. This is where everything seems to evolve. Are we living out of a sort of a box of memories? Do we have a life? Is there a life out there? These are questions I address.
Okay. Now, you've traveled around the world a lot.
Yeah.
How do other countries compare to our own?
Oh boy. I was in Hong Kong about a year ago, and at a trade show, and a gentleman approached me, and I'm talking to the people, and I had a guide who could speak Cantonese and our Mandarin Mandarin, and he said to me, I said, look, translate this. I said, what do you think of Americans? And he said, oh, Disneyland. I said, Disneyland? He said, yeah, you have Mickey Mouse. I said, yes, I suppose we do. So I assume that we are Disneyland to the world.
I think we're a bunch of goofies over here, actually.
Interesting that you say that. Perhaps. But they see us, we are the most litigious, tort-related country in the world. Mm-hmm. We, unlike the Japanese, who do not relish the idea of the blame loop, which I cover in my book. In other words, and Gene Gebser, in his work on inversion, inversive elements such as noun inversions, covered many of these issues. And the Japanese do not blame; they want resolve. They don't care who did what. They aren't out to blame people. Now, this country here is a tremendous amount of money, capital investment, or investment made in blame. In other words, if misery wasn't worth a fortune, where would lawyers be? Where would politicians be? Where would religious leaders be?
Right.
In other words, we sell it. You get my point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so yes, they do think we're duds in a way. Yes.
It's a lot easier to blame somebody than to take the responsibility of oneself.
Absolutely, and that's a sorry fact. As a matter of fact, they were building a new airport in off one of the islands in Hong Kong, and of course the original airport comes right in over the city, and the wingtip nearly touches the building. I was totally amazed. I could see the box of cereal on the guy's table, literally, coming in for a landing. But anyways, back to my point here. They shipped in hundreds and hundreds of people from mainland China to work these airports for like $1, $2 a day, and they're living in these tin huts. They have an armed guard. They have fences around them. They won't let the people go into the country. Is this our idea of freedom? Is this our idea of truth?
Not in this country.
You get my point here?
Yeah.
So my book covers important issues, unlike any other philosophical concepts out there. In fact, one of my readers said that it was one of the gutsiest concepts they had ever read. And because it's heartfelt, it's a poignant work. It is not meant to be academic. I mean, it is, yes, and I did use a lot of, from Aristotle right on up to Nietzsche. Yes, I do. I mean, these people were thinkers. These people tore their hearts out to relate to people and to give them information that was sorely needed. And I did the same thing. It took nearly 5 years to put my book together with all the artwork that's in it, and a tremendous amount of insight went into this. This wasn't just arbitrarily thrown together. So anyways, I hope I answered that.
Now, Immanuel Kant, you
yes.
talk about him in the book, right?
Yes.
He stated that the will to succeed is the only purpose of the human being. Is this something you agree with?
Well, in that, the will to succeed, but see, Kant never did decide, never did outline what it meant to succeed. He never defined that. And at the end, he basically, toward the end of the concept, he basically stated that The agreement process is all we have. And by saying that, he literally, of course, and he was an academic person, and to step outside those boundaries, to say that, well, look, if we all agree to agree here, isn't that placation? Haven't we set up sort of a false, sort of a perfect hypocrisy?
Mm-hmm.
If we're all just going to agree, then good that's made to be good, even if it's bad, is still good.
I agree.
So you see the point here. So it's very, very important, and my book states this so clearly in so many different ways, that we need to know this. We need to relish and sense the sort of antiquated way of thinking, where we are in paradox, and I wrote this for a reason. Our agreement process is in paradox. We have processed so many fallacies. 49% of the nation's school children are on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We've made these social diseases to fit every criteria of not wanting to remember or parrot the same mundane inductive trash that's been taught all the children from past generations. So there's a tremendous influx of people who are saying, hey, here we're decrying drugs, on the outside, yet we're drugging the children and expecting them to be drug-free. What's the problem?
Mm.
So anyway, so this is a powerful issue.
It is. Did you use this as a thesis in school or anything, or?
No, I didn't. I studied law, and when in fact, I'll share something very interesting with you and the listening audience. There are basically three methods of interpretation, and there are two finalized methods of accepting the interpretations. One is inductive and the other is deductive. We have basically two dictionaries that rule the world. One of at least for not that there aren't different meanings, different relationships to those meanings, but basically sentiment is controlled by, let's say, Webster's Standard Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary. That's pretty much a dictionary of sentiment. Then we have Black's Law, which is the deductive form of finalization. In other words, the truth ends here, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Now, schools don't teach inductive thinking. I mean, they don't teach deductive thinking. They teach inductive thinking. In other words, here, remember this, and agree with it, and repeat it, and we'll give you a gold star.
Right.
They don't teach kids, even the colleges today are not teaching people to think. They're only teaching them to remember, and remembering is not thinking.
Exactly. That's a big problem I have with school.
Yeah, and now add to this three interpretations of thinking. In other words, we think on the level of intention. And in other words, this is our progress or our ersatz momentum, ersatz meaning substitute. We have a substitute momentum that we've created through intention. In other words, through intention, no one is actually accountable or responsible. All you need to do is intend to do. And once you've been properly hypocrisized, in other words, with credentials and licenses and hats and how should I say, the rank, mm-hmm. You are really only accountable to what you remembered.
Right.
And if you don't step out, as long as you don't step outside that domain, one of the prior shows that I had, I think it was Southern California Focus, I was asked a question like, do you think that even a politician or a religious leader who have thought great thoughts could actually think anything that was fresh or different or new within their criteria? And I said, no, absolutely not. They can't. Because the minute they do, they're going to be ostracized. they're going to be slapped on the hand, and it's going to be said that hey, you can't do this. This isn't, this is not the proper making of the circumstances that we need. You can't do this. You can't think those thoughts. So here we are in a world of academics, and here we are in a feeling world, and we call these things that we have, feelings and emotions, baggage, and they aren't. They are the residue of all the things that are unaccounted for, that are coming to surface because our tolerance levels have peaked, and we're reaching a portion, and I think it's epidemic. We're reaching a portion, a tremendous. I mean, obviously, if you wouldn't want me on your show, if you didn't want something fresh and unique, and a few people have said this. At least, see, so when you say people don't care, yes, people do care. But there has to be, mind is assimilating. It's putting things together, it's taking things apart, it's deducing, your five senses have become the sixth power, 5 to the sixth senses, 5, say this again here, 5 to the fifth power represent the sixth sense. It's a mouthful. But we have a composite wholeness, and my book speaks of this readily, that if the rip is healed, and once we connect with this wholeness, we are not only a full, we're turned angry because we're forced, you've heard the expression, to be or not to be?
Yes. Okay. Hamlet.
Well, we're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't.
Yeah, it's another good one.
So, and the point being here is that if here we have on one side that you're supposed to be. Let's just use an example here so we can try to grasp this. If politics says, okay, if you're afraid of being afraid, give us your fears and we'll make everything better, but you can't think anymore. You got to do as we tell you and be thoughtless. Mm-hmm. And if you are, we'll take care of you, sort of like Big Brother. And once this is done, then, but you have to accept everything that comes your way, whatever we dish out. Now, and also politics says, well, and we're going to fill our pockets too while we're doing it, because, well, if you're stupid enough to want us here, and you voted us in, well, hey, you got what you got anyway. Yeah. So you can't say anything about it. Now, religion takes up the secondary stance. They're basically the same. They're saying, okay, you're afraid of your own natural fear, and even ever since the Egyptians, the boogeyman has been an important part of collecting taxes. You scare the people half to death on one end, and if they don't obey, you scare them half to death when they come out the other side. Ah. So religion and politics got you either way. And my book hopefully helps people to break away from this and to rely on their own self-will, their own volition, and their own initiative. Now, this has nothing to do with succeeding. It merely means that you are capable of holding your ground with simplistic and formidable thinking, but it's based on feeling also. In other words, you are not going to separate your senses and use the monodimensional device, the word impetus, in other words, noun, verb, momentum. In other words, noun proper, everybody wants to be the proper noun. Everybody wants to be, to be future tense, progress, right? You past, present, and future, we got the verb. So in involving ourselves with this monodimensional syllabus of thinking, we actually are only using 2 of the 5 senses. Now, to make this very clear, and I want to draw this out here because this one subject takes in like 2 or 3 chapters in the book, but it's using the written verbal, and the written verbal are strictly memory augmentation. Things devoted to memory. In other words, we say a green tree is a green tree, but the tree has been there way before we put the tag and the name on it. So that's only a name and a tag. Okay, now what? Okay, so what we've done is fragmented. All knowledge is fragmented, right? All knowledge is taken from the whole. Mm-hmm. So all knowledge is fragmented. So when we say we know something, we know very little. Right. Okay. So to make a long story short and close this thing here, so basically we're in reducing, trying to reduce down and come and reach a common denominator of realization that look, here we're calling something because we want everybody to know it by what it is. But yeah, if somebody says, hey, look at this, look at that, and call it something else, no one wants to look at it. It's like, oh no, we can't change that symbol. We don't touch that symbol. So the authority, and of course this has been a war going on since the beginning of time. In fact, the start of time was the demarcation between. That's when religion gained its momentum, because they wanted equal control over the word. Because symbols were becoming very powerful, and people were coming into alliance with this. In fact, I did a religious show when Christ was mentioned. I said, yeah, duty killed Christ. And they were, what? I said, yes, duty and obligation killed Christ. All the people that were devoted to duty and obligation murdered him because they didn't want anything to interfere with what they were doing. And he was a threat to that. All thinkers are a threat to the going systems think.
Status quo?
Pardon?
To the status quo?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In other words, my book is not readily received by a lot of stores. In California, however, it is. Record sales. The people are not afraid to think out there. They're looking. I think people are looking into themselves a lot. There are certain little enclaves in Colorado, different areas. Seem to be hotbeds of new thinking. They call it New Age, but my work is philosophical. It's psychological, but it's not meant to make money. I didn't write this book to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it because I think that after traveling the world and seeing a lot of the oppression, seeing a lot of things that just tore my heart out, and I wanted to write something that was solid, and of course I've been doing surreal art for a lot of years. And finally wanted to pursue this and bring it about.
The artwork that you did in the book is wonderful.
Thank you.
And you said that you're up for an award?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I would just received message. As a matter of fact, it's funny that I received. The people haven't told me yet, but somebody received a newsletter that the cover of the book had received. It was a finalist for the cover design. And of course my art is on it because I have a picture of sort of a half-naked woman being torn. In other words, she's tearing herself, and there's another small figure over her head. And of course, it's all embossed. It's very beautifully done. And she's sort of tearing herself, like we all are. We're all tearing ourselves in two, trying to understand the paradox. And we're all trying to connect all these little dots, like we did when we were a kid, trying to make the picture come about. And what I've done in my book is not create the dots, but I've actually taken I've removed everything out of the picture, so only the background exists. Now it's sort of reversed,
mm-hmm.
but the background is so clear and so easy to understand if we want to understand.
All right, James Beyor, author of the R.I.P. Mining the Subconscious Artifact. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Can I give them the 1-800 number?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Thank you. For all you thinkers out there, if you're interested in the book, get your pencil. It's 1-800-266-5564. That's 1-800-266-5564. I swear by name, the rep. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good day.